Almost everyone has heard the word unsub or the phrase the plane leaves in 20. Or maybe you've heard a description of a girl in her early 20s. She might have a stutter, she might have a bad home life, she might be local or goes to a university around the area. These are all elements that combine to form what is known as psychological profiling. I'm here today to tell you about the history of psychological profiling, what the career entails, and the reality versus television of it. And this matters to me because I am a forensic science major and I will have to deal with psychological profilers in my field later on in life. So it all begins with the profiler himself, the first one being Howard D. Tedden. He designed a method for analyzing unknown offenders, and he looked at the behavior at crime scenes for evidence of medical disorders or different types of personality traits. And according to Kratz, he used a combination of forensic science, death investigations, and psychiatric knowledge to form this method. So now that we kind of know where it began, we can get a better definition of what psychological profiling actually is. It is a technique that uses information gathered at the scene from victims, from witnesses, to create a description of an offender. And it develops from forensic psychologists working with law enforcement officials to integrate the psychology and science together. And according to Winderman, profiling is as much of an art as it is a science. So now that we know the definition, we can kind of figure out a little bit better of how it works. So it's used to narrow down the field of suspects or to figure out how to interrogate a suspect that is in custody. And doing this, we use 4 phases to determine the personality. Antecedent is number 1, which is the fantasy or the plan before the murderer commits the crime, and you figure out kind of what actually triggers it. 2 is the method, the type of victim. Was she female? Was it a male? Was it a certain appearance they were looking for? And how they victimized them. So shooting, stabbing, or strangulation. 3rd is the body disposal. Was it at one scene or multiple scenes? And 4th was post-defense behavior. So did they interact themselves into the media or contact the investigators themselves? Knowing kind of how it forms, we can figure out the different approaches that are taken, the FBI approach or the psychological approach. Having the same goal, they just want to help examine evidence from the crime scenes to develop an offender description. The FBI approach is a criminal investigative analysis. It's the idea that behavior reflects personality, and this is where those 4 phases come from. And they use the idea of disorganized versus organized crime. Organized being it's planned out and premeditated, so they're not insane, they don't have remorse. Disorganized, they leave behind evidence, and they might be under the influence or a little bit younger. In the psychological approach, there's either offender profiling, which is more peer-reviewed based. They use inferences and they base theirs off of research. Or there's the crime action, which focuses on the composition of the profile itself. So what is important and needs to be in the profile rather than the behavior and using past cases to create it. So after learning a little bit about the different approaches, we can kind of see what the career really entails. According to Franklin, you need different traits, you need a strong intuition, you have to be open-minded, you have to understand criminal minds, and you have to have emotional detachment. So you must be able to detach yourself if there's a crime involving a young child or something personal to you. And be able to analyze different photos or witness interviews, and media trials. Also, the salaries ranges from $40,000 to $127,000 a year, so it's not that bad of a pay either. Lastly, it leads to the steps to becoming an actual profiler. First and most important is education. You must have a high school diploma and a bachelor's degree in forensics or criminal justice or psychology. You must attend the Law Enforcement Academy, which is about 3 to 5 months. You must have experience in the field and have several years of that, and keep up with ongoing training and keep yourself up to date with the information. And most importantly, and what people really know about, is TV versus reality. So now that we have a better understanding of it, we can get a better background of what the TV and media portrayals. And when you first think of it, You kind of think of the shows like Criminal Minds being the #1, or The Profiler, or Blacklist, or the movie Silence of the Lambs. They give their own perception of that it's more of an art than it is an exact science, but it's still accurate to catch these criminals. And in the TV shows, they show that they are out in the field and doing all this action, but that's not really the case. Normally they don't even leave headquarters, they don't have car chases or shootouts or combat or even in life-threatening situations at all. They're not even in charge of investigations. And they don't have those private jets. And now that we kind of know what TV shows portray, like the reality of it is, like the profiler isn't even a single employment job. They are part of a team called a behavioral analysis unit. And these TV shows, they're wrong. They sometimes show that the whole profile is right, but actually it could be completely incorrect. This image is skewed because of the media, and it shows a detective always catching bad guys and the plot wrapping up nicely. Overall, psychological profiling is controversial, but it's growing today because of the research and the use in the crime scene investigations. So I hope you all have a better understanding of the history, what the career entails, and the reality versus television of it. So who knows, maybe you one day will become a member of the BAU. Thank you.